Tonight, I want to speak to you about the most misunderstood power in the world, a power so close to you that you have overlooked it your entire life, a power that does not wait for permission, does not depend on circumstances, and does not negotiate with obstacles. It is the power of feeling something as already yours, not hoping, not wishing, not struggling, feeling. Because the moment something feels like it is yours, nothing, absolutely nothing, can block it. Most people live their lives believing that the world decides what they may have. They believe permission must come from money, from time, from other people, from luck, from fate. They believe doors open when conditions improve. But I tell you this plainly, doors open when you internally accept ownership. Until then, the world has no reason to rearrange itself. The outer world is not creative, it is responsive. It mirrors the state you occupy within. When you feel like something is already yours, the world must echo that feeling, because the world has no choice. It does not argue, it does not judge, it simply reflects. Think of the things you already possess. You do not wake up every morning wondering if they will be taken from you. You do not affirm them, you do not chase them, you do not beg reality to keep them in place. You move through your day with quiet certainty. That certainty is the key, not effort, not force, certainty. Now imagine approaching your desire with that same inner posture. No desperation, no anxiety, no pleading, just the calm knowing that it belongs to you. When that feeling becomes natural, reality begins to shift in ways that appear miraculous to those who do not understand the law behind it. People ask, but what if there are obstacles? And I answer, obstacles only exist for those who are trying to get something. Obstacles disappear for those who know they already have it. A locked door is only a problem if you believe what you want is on the other side. If you feel it is already yours, the door either opens, dissolves, or becomes irrelevant altogether. The mind is trained to look for proof before belief. But consciousness operates in reverse. Belief precedes proof. Feeling precedes form. You must accept internally what you wish to experience externally, not once, not occasionally, but as a state you return to so often that it becomes familiar, comfortable, and ordinary. This is where many fail. They visit the feeling of ownership briefly, like a guest passing through a house, and then return to their old identity of waiting and wanting. But the world responds to permanence, not visits. When you live from the feeling of already having, reality rearranges itself to match your residence. Do not confuse emotion with feeling. Emotion is excitement, joy, thrill. Feeling is acceptance. Feeling is the quiet inner agreement that says, this is mine. You do not celebrate what you own every moment, you simply assume it. That assumption is what moves mountains. When you feel like it is yours, your thoughts change automatically. Your reactions change. Your expectations change. You stop asking how. Because ownership does not require explanation. You stop worrying about timing because possession removes urgency. You stop fearing loss because certainty dissolves fear. And here is the secret few understand. The moment you feel ownership, you stop interfering with the process. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop micromanaging reality. You allow life to deliver in its own way through channels you could never have planned. Nothing can block what is internally accepted. Not delay, not distance, not other people, not past mistakes, not lack of resources. Those things only appear powerful when you are internally divided, when part of you wants and part of you doubts. Unity within removes resistance without effort. Look back at your life. Notice how the things that came easily were the things you never questioned. And notice how the things that felt difficult were the things you chased, worried about, and constantly checked on. The difference was never the thing itself. The difference was your state. When you feel like it is yours, you no longer watch the clock. Time bends to certainty. Events line up naturally. Conversations happen unexpectedly. Opportunities appear casually. What others call coincidence is simply alignment responding to an assumed identity. Do not try to convince yourself emotionally. Do not force belief through repetition alone. Instead, enter the feeling through imagination. Experience the end, not the journey, not the struggle, the end. See yourself living as the one who already has it. Speak internally from that place. React mentally from that place. Rest in that place. When doubt appears, do not fight it. Simply return to ownership. You do not argue with doubt when you own something, you ignore it. Ownership does not need defense. Let that be your guide. People may question you. Circumstances may contradict you. Appearances may mock you. Let them. The world must echo your dominant feeling, not your momentary reactions. Persist in feeling like it is yours, not with strain, but with quiet loyalty to your inner truth. Understand this. Nothing is blocked. It is only delayed by your refusal to accept it internally. The moment you accept, the delay begins to dissolve. The moment you feel ownership, resistance loses its foundation. Stop asking reality for permission. Stop waiting for signs. Stop monitoring progress. These behaviors belong to the identity of someone who does not yet have. You are called to move differently now. Feel like it is yours when you wake up. Feel like it is yours when you fall asleep. Feel like it is yours when nothing seems to be happening. Especially then, because the unseen is always moving before the seen. Your inner world is the command center. What you authorize there must appear here. There is no exception, no favoritism, no randomness, just law. When you finally understand this, urgency leaves you. Peace replaces effort, confidence replaces hope, and life begins to cooperate instead of resist. So tonight, I leave you with this truth. The moment you feel like it is yours, the world has no authority to deny it. Nothing can block what you have already claimed within. The only thing that ever stood in the way was hesitation to accept. Accept now. Not emotionally, not dramatically, quietly, naturally, completely. Because once it feels like yours, it already is. And as you remain in this understanding, you begin to notice something subtle yet profound. Life stops arguing with you. Situations that once demanded explanation no longer require your attention. You are not trying to convince anyone, not even yourself. You simply occupy a state, and from that state responses flow naturally. When something is truly yours internally, you do not check for movement every hour. You do not interpret silence as failure. You do not see delays as denial. Silence becomes neutral. Waiting becomes irrelevant. You are no longer watching the soil to see if the seed is growing. You have already eaten the fruit in consciousness. This is why effort disappears. Effort belongs to the one who is trying to change the world. Feeling ownership belongs to the one who understands the world must change. One is force, the other is authority, and authority never strains. Notice how differently you behave when you feel entitled to an experience versus when you feel you must earn it. Earning carries tension. Entitlement carries ease. I am not speaking of arrogance or superiority, but of your acceptance. The sun does not ask permission to rise. It does not hope the sky will allow it. It simply appears because it belongs there. When you accept something as yours, your nervous system settles, your breathing changes, your inner dialogue softens. This inner calm is not passive, it is creative. From it, inspired actions emerge without pressure. You do not force steps, steps appear. You may still take action, but the action is different. It is not frantic. It is not fueled by fear of missing out. It is calm, precise, and timely. And often you will find that the most powerful movements happen without you doing anything at all. Others move. Circumstances shift. Paths clear. The mistake many make is assuming they must hold the feeling tightly as if it might escape. But ownership does not grip. It relaxes. If you must constantly remind yourself you have not yet settled into the state, the goal is not intensity, but normalcy. Ask yourself, what would feel normal if this were already mine? How would I think? How would I speak to myself? How would I react to challenges? Let those answers guide your inner posture. There will be moments when the old identity tries to resurface. The identity that checks, worries, calculates, compares. Do not condemn it. Simply do not return to it. You outgrow it by no longer occupying it. States fade when they are no longer inhabited. And understand this clearly, you do not manifest by fighting old patterns. You manifest by starving them of attention. Feed the feeling of ownership, and everything else weakens naturally. When something feels like it is yours, you no longer personalize setbacks. You no longer read meaning into temporary appearances. You know that movement is happening even when unseen. This knowing is not blind faith. It is experiential certainty born from alignment. Reality is always late to the party. Consciousness arrives first. The outer world lags behind because it is an echo, not a voice. and echoes cannot choose what they repeat. So remain faithful to the feeling, not with strain, but with quiet consistency. Return to it the way you return home after a long day, not because you must, but because it belongs to you. In this state, patience becomes effortless. You are not waiting for permission to be fulfilled. Fulfillment is already internal, and the external simply catches up in its own rhythm. And as this rhythm unfolds, you may notice that what arrives often comes in forms better than you imagined. This is because when you stop controlling the how, intelligence beyond personal planning takes over. Ownership removes micromanagement. You are not here to make things happen. You are here to allow what is already claimed to express itself. The world is far more cooperative than you were taught to believe. It only resists uncertainty. Certainty invites obedience. So stay with the feeling. Let it deepen not through effort, but through familiarity. Let it become the background of your life, rather than the focus of your attention. Because once something feels like it is yours, the story is already written. Reality is just catching up to the knowing. And as this knowing settles more deeply, you begin to realize that the desire itself was never separate from you. It did not come to tease or test you. It came because it already belonged to your state of being. Desire is not a request, it is recognition. It is consciousness, remembering what it intends to experience. This is why forcing feels unnatural. Force suggests separation. Feeling ownership dissolves separation entirely. You are no longer reaching outward, you are allowing inward truth to surface. The moment you stop treating your desire as something outside of you, resistance collapses on its own. You may notice that people around you begin to respond differently. Conversations shift, attitudes soften, opportunities arise casually, without dramatic build-up. This is not because you change them, but because you change the state from which you meet them. The world always meets you where you are, never where you wish you were. When you feel like it is yours, comparison loses its grip. What others have or do no longer threatens you. Their success does not delay yours. Their movement does not block your path. Ownership removes competition because ownership recognizes sufficiency. And this is where peace replaces striving. You no longer measure progress by visible signs alone. You sense alignment internally, and that becomes enough. The outer world is no longer your validator, it is your mirror. There is a quiet confidence that emerges here, one that does not announce itself. You do not need to speak about what you are becoming. You live from it, and life responds more accurately to embodiment than to words. When challenges appear, they do not feel personal, they feel procedural, like steps rearranging themselves to accommodate your state. You do not interpret difficulty as punishment or failure. You understand it as movement reshaping itself around your certainty. And certainty does not shout. It does not demand reassurance. It simply remains. It is steady. It is unmoved by temporary contradiction. You may still feel moments of impatience, but even impatience changes tone. It no longer carries fear. It carries expectation. There is a difference between anxious waiting and confident anticipation. One doubts arrival, the other assumes it. As you stay in this feeling, you begin to trust life again, not as something unpredictable, but as something responsive. You stop bracing for disappointment. You stop rehearsing loss. Those habits belong to a former state. Now, you allow yourself to receive mentally before receiving physically. You let satisfaction precede evidence. This reversal feels strange at first, but soon it feels natural, like remembering how things were always meant to work. And without effort, you find yourself thinking from the outcome instead of abo. Ut it. Your inner conversations change. You speak as one who has already integrated the experience. Language follows state. Nothing needs to be rushed here. Speed is irrelevant when certainty is present. What matters is consistency, feeling, not intensity of desire. Return again and again to the simple acceptance. This is mine, not tomorrow, not eventually. Now internally. And as this internal acceptance stabilizes, life continues its quiet rearrangement, adjusting relationships, timing, resources, and events, not because you demanded it, but because you authorized it through feeling. Stay there, not watching, not checking, simply being. and let the echo continue forming. And as you continue to remain in this state, you start to notice that even the idea of trying no longer makes sense. Trying implies effort toward an outcome not yet secured. But ownership does not try. It assumes, it rests. It moves when movement feels natural and stays still when stillness feels complete. The mind, once trained to chase and calculate, begins to quiet. Thoughts no longer spiral around questions of worthiness or timing. You are not proving yourself to life. You are allowing life to confirm what you have already accepted. There is a softness that enters your experience, not weakness but flexibility. You stop resisting detours because you no longer believe the destination is fragile. If something belongs to you, it will meet you wherever you are. Routes may change, but arrival remains inevitable. This is why fear begins to lose its authority. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It feeds on the idea that something can be taken away or denied. But what is internally owned cannot be threatened. It exists beyond conditions. You may still encounter moments where the old habit of checking for evidence arises. When it does, gently return to the feeling of already having, not as a correction, but as a preference. You are choosing a more natural position, and with time, this preference becomes your default. You no longer have to remind yourself. The feeling sits quietly beneath your thoughts, guiding them. It becomes the lens through which you perceive events. From this place, intuition sharpens. You know when to speak and when to remain silent. You know when to act and when to wait. Decisions feel less dramatic because they are no longer burdened with fear of wrong outcomes. Whatever you choose unfolds in alignment. You begin to trust yourself again, not the version of yourself that reacted to circumstances, but the one that initiates experience from within. Confidence grows, not from success stories, but from inner stability. And here is something subtle yet important. When you feel like it is yours, gratitude changes. You are no longer grateful because something happened. You are grateful because you know it is unfolding. Gratitude becomes a state, not a response. This state influences everything. Your posture changes. Your voice carries calm authority. Your presence communicates certainty without explanation. People feel it. Situations respond to it. You stop asking for reassurance from signs, numbers, or repeated confirmations. Those belong to doubt. You already know, and knowing is quiet. As days pass, the desire no longer feels distant. It feels integrated, like a memory you carry rather than a future you await. The line between now and then dissolves, and when the outer world finally mirrors what you have long accepted within, it does not feel shocking. It feels familiar, almost expected, like something catching up rather than something arriving. So you continue living from this inner ownership, allowing life to organize itself, moment by moment, without urgency, without pressure, without needing a finish line. Because the state itself is the fulfillment in motion. And as this state deepens, you begin to notice that your entire perception of life shifts. Events no longer dictate your mood. Circumstances no longer define your confidence. Your inner acceptance acts as a magnet, and reality bends subtly to align. You are no longer a passive participant hoping for outcomes. You are the unseen architect orchestrating everything through the simple, unshakable feeling of ownership. You begin to live in a world where obstacles are illusions because nothing can block what you have already claimed internally. Challenges that once caused stress now appear as mere rearrangements, opportunities to reaffirm your state. You do not resist them, you acknowledge them as part of the unfolding, and your calm certainty makes them irrelevant to the ultimate outcome. You notice the contrast with those around you who struggle, who push, who force. They appear frantic, anxious, constantly checking, while you move effortlessly through life, anchored in the knowledge that what you desire is already yours. This is the subtle power that cannot be measured externally, yet its effects are undeniable in every interaction, every circumstance that aligns perfectly without effort. As you embody this, you realize that external evidence is never the cause of your state. It is only the effect. You no longer look outward to feel whole. Instead, wholeness flows from within. You are complete before anything manifests, and completeness is what draws manifestation toward you naturally. You stop negotiating with time. Time becomes a servant rather than a master. The world may appear to delay, but you know that delay is an illusion for those who do not understand the law of inward assumption. For you, there is no rush, no panic, no need to control every detail. The inner state holds all power, and all else aligns effortlessly. Even your relationships change. You no longer depend on others to validate your worth or grant access to your desires. People respond to the energy you radiate. Doors open because you have claimed them internally, not because you asked externally. Others move into place, not by force, but by the natural pull of your certainty. You learn to distinguish between emotion and feeling. Emotion is fleeting and reactive. Feeling, the true instrument of creation, is sustained and deliberate. Feeling like it is yours does not waver with circumstances. It persists quietly, unwaveringly, beneath the surface of passing events. And as this feeling becomes more permanent, action changes its quality. You act not from compulsion or desperation, but from inspiration and alignment. You no longer chase outcomes. Instead, you allow inspired steps to present themselves naturally. Each step is guided by the internal knowing that all is already complete. Even when appearances contradict your desire, you do not sway. You maintain the assumption. You ignore temporary evidence of absence. You know that reality only mirrors what is dominant within you. Nothing outside can counteract the state you have assumed. This is the power of living as though it is already yours. It is not a technique, it is not a strategy. It is the natural occupation of a state that reality cannot resist. The outer world may appear obstinate to the untrained eye, but for one who feels ownership, it bends and yields, rearranging itself to reflect the inner certainty. As this certainty deepens, you notice that fear, doubt, and impatience lose significance. They are no longer drivers of action. They become passing shadows, unable to influence the dominant state. Your mind rests in the calm knowledge that what you desire cannot be blocked, delayed, or denied. Your imagination becomes the laboratory where reality is prepared. What you imagine with feeling becomes inevitable. You do not imagine steps, strategies, or processes. You imagine the completed experience, living it internally, sensing it as already yours. That internal experience is the seed from which outer manifestation naturally springs. And as the feeling matures, you find that your entire perception of life is transformed. You recognize the futility of struggle, the irrelevance of desperation, and the insufficiency of hope. Ownership replaces all of these because it is the end state itself. You move, speak, and think from this end state, and the world responds with perfect fidelity, inevitably and effortlessly. You stop asking, "Why not now?" Because the answer is always within, it is already yours. Timing, appearances, and circumstances are only reflections of prior assumption. Once you assume ownership, these outer conditions adjust quietly, as if following the script that has already been written in consciousness. Even your understanding of success and fulfillment shifts. You no longer see it as something to attain externally. Fulfillment is the state you occupy first. Manifestation is simply the echo of that state. The world cannot oppose the inwardly assumed reality. It bends, it aligns, it delivers, and often in ways more magnificent than you had imagined. And as you continue to dwell in this state, you begin to notice subtleties you had overlooked. The smallest thoughts no longer escape unnoticed. Every feeling, every internal gesture is calibrated toward ownership. You live intentionally, yet effortlessly, in the quiet dominance of the assumed end. Interactions with others become effortless. You no longer react from lack. You respond from completeness. Influence flows naturally. Persuasion becomes unnecessary. Circumstances and people align to the state you inhabit, and the world seems to conspire, not because it is magical, but because it is law. What is assumed as true internally must manifest externally. You recognize the absurdity of resisting or negotiating with life. To resist is to doubt your own assumption. To negotiate is to relinquish ownership. But one who feels it is theirs does not negotiate. 8. One who owns internally does not resist. One who assumes without question moves through life like water through an open channel, unstoppable, natural, effortless. And in every quiet moment, you return to the feeling, not with force, not with effort, not with urgency, simply with recognition. Recognition that what you desire is already yours, that no outside force can block it, that the universe operates as an echo of your inner conviction, and that all is in perfect unfolding according to the state you occupy. From this place, you no longer measure progress by results. Results are secondary. The primary measure is the constancy of feeling, the unwavering assumption that ownership is complete. Each day becomes a rehearsal of this state. Each thought, each action, each interaction is filtered through it, and the world responds faithfully without question. And the deeper you dwell, the more subtle the changes become. You begin to see that everything you once believed to be difficult or impossible is simply a reflection of resistance in your own mind. When that resistance dissolves, what was blocked flows without obstruction. What was distant arrives effortlessly. What was denied appears naturally. Your life becomes a reflection of your inner certainty. Circumstances align, people respond, opportunities appear without effort, timing unfolds naturally. All of reality bends to the dominant state you occupy, and in this state you understand that nothing can block what has been claimed internally, because internal claim is law. You no longer chase, worry, hope, or fear. You only assume, feel, and let reality catch up. And in this assumption, in this quiet, unwavering ownership, everything you have ever desired exists already, waiting only for your outer perception to meet the inner truth. And as each day continues, your internal state grows stronger, more habitual, more natural. The feeling of ownership becomes seamless. It colors every thought, every action, every moment. You no longer separate yourself from what you desire. It is as though you have been living it all along. And the world, faithful as ever, continues to reflect what you feel. Circumstances shift, doors open, obstacles dissolve, and what once seemed distant now appears inevitable, because you have stopped resisting and you have assumed as true what is yours. Your imagination, your feeling, your assumption, they become the silent architects of all that manifests around you. You understand that nothing outside has authority over your life except the state you occupy within. And this understanding transforms not only what you receive, but how you perceive the unfolding of all things. You move through life without strain, without urgency, without fear, because you dwell in ownership. And in dwelling there, every element of existence bends to match your assumption, naturally, quietly, irresistibly. Your inner certainty becomes the unshakable foundation on which all of life builds. External circumstances may still appear uncertain to others, but for you, there is no uncertainty, because what you feel as already yours cannot be blocked, delayed, or denied. And in this realization, you notice that everything you once struggled to achieve now requires no struggle at all. Effort becomes unnecessary. Force becomes irrelevant. Waiting becomes a neutral experience. The only requirement is to maintain the inner assumption, the quiet, confident feeling that it is already yours. And the world continues to mirror this assumption, unfolding in perfect alignment until what you once imagined in the quiet of your inner mind now stands fully present in your experience. And so, my friends, the message is clear. Nothing outside of you holds the power to grant, block, or delay what you desire. The only authority in your life is the state you occupy within. When you feel as though it is already yours, when you assume ownership with unwavering certainty, the universe cannot resist. Obstacles dissolve, delays vanish, and doors open, not by force, not by luck, but by the natural law of consciousness reflecting itself. Today you are called to step fully into this state, to live from the end, to feel, to claim, to trust. Hold fast to the knowing that what is yours cannot be denied. Let this understanding guide your thoughts, shape your actions, and transform your life. Own it internally, and watch as nothing, absolutely nothing, can block what you have already assumed is yours. Your life is ready to mirror the certainty you carry within. Claim it, feel it, live it, and let the world align to the undeniable power of your inner reality.